show the form appears a little more clearly by using the darker tones. You can bring up the form by showing the contrast between the light and dark tones.
The mentor program was set up as a result of a need to extend the educational opportunities afforded to children.
Then it runs through this one, then it runs through a whole lot.
That's a transistor,
Yeah, that's a transistor.
isn't it?
These are ICs. Okay, and it comes through and it gets turned into a time delay, which is this bit here.
Oh, yeah.
The mentor program exists as a means by which students' special interests and talents can be extended where it is not possible for the school to do so due to limitations such as time or physical setting. Students may seek assistance to extend their knowledge in traditional subject areas or to branch out into new fields.
This one's smart, slick. Does that make sense?
Give me a break. I don't reckon it is. I think it's much more natural than Travel All the Way because I felt I had a lot more feeling in it myself. I don't know, maybe it didn't come across to the reader.
Yeah, but you're playing with words from about the second page on. You're playing with words for the rest of the novel.
When?
Show you.
The mentor program is fairly well known throughout Victoria now, and once I receive an application from a student, I arrange an interview with the student and one or both of their parents. This clears up any misconceptions they may have about participating in the program. It also gives me a chance to gauge the student's motivational level and the ability level at which they're working in their chosen subject area. An example of a student who sought assistance from the mentor scheme is 9-year-old Duncan Gray. He has a special interest in physics and electronics. Why do you think Duncan needs a mentor?
Well, he just does all these incredible things and we don't think we're able to help him any more than what we're doing at home. And we were hoping he might be able to get some help down here.
Right. Duncan, can you tell me some of the things that you're interested in doing?
Really just learning about electronics and physics, space, how propulsion and the solar research, things like that.
I've heard a story about a robot of yours. Can you tell me a bit more about it?
Well, it's pretty simple, but it's quite funny and it works well. It's remote controlled. It's got indicator light. It's got motors, electric motors, servos which are little radio control things which move, rechargeable batteries.
Duncan, you go and show us, please. A quick one. Okay. Duncan relates quite well to his peer group and he has developed some firm friendships within the grade. His special interest in electronics does get in the way sometimes because he'll spend a lot of his time designing rather than socialising with the other children. It became obvious that Duncan really needed somebody to talk to who was also interested in physics and electronics. And as it turned out, one of the teachers knew of a boy from a local secondary school who was very interested in these things. And he now visits Duncan at school once a week. And while Duncan certainly benefits from the relationship, I think Cameron's learning a few things from Duncan as well.
Can you show me where the diodes are?
Well, there's two here, one just there.
I'm at RMIT doing a Masters in Metallurgy. I did my undergraduate course here also, and then they gave me a scholarship to do the Masters.
I'm ready for the task force. I'd like you to meet Duncan Gray and Kathy Gray.
I think the main reason I want to be a mentor is to give young people the opportunities that I had when I was little. I had an elder brother who could always show me how to build electronic devices, but I don't think Duncan has that opportunity.
Well, in the past, of course, children lived in large extended families more often, which meant there were older people around who had expertise and respect and could pass on their skills to young people. In addition, of course, they lived in smaller villages or in smaller towns, and many of the young people were apprenticed, as you remembered, to the masters of the guild and learned their skills in a direct one-to-one relationship where there was a clear mentor role. And that context is very different today.
That's really amazing, Duncan. How do you work the steering?
Oh, it's this little servo which acts as a motor and turns the wheel and turns it round.
Right, okay. How about the horn? How's that?
Oh, that's... right. Whoops.
Oh, wow. Oh, how do you work that?
It's got this little thing here,
Yeah,
which turns the horn on.
yeah.
And hear it.
Right, it doesn't have any
It
sort
does
of
it.
mechanical actuation or anything?
Oh, it has a
All
little
electronic.
relay. Yeah, it's nearly all electronic. It's a little relay which is electromechanical device. It just shows you the power.
The program, of course, runs outside school hours. And how often would we be expected to see the student? Well, it would depend on the arrangements you made with them. You can negotiate that at the first meeting.
So it could be
with
week,
them.
month,
Yeah,
whatever.
weekly, fortnightly, once a month. Depends on what you choose to do with them.
Okay, what do you do, Arthur?
I do a fortnightly get-together with
Arthur Thompson, who has been a mentor for about the last 3 years. Arthur has established a wonderful rapport with a number of students over that time, some relationships extending perhaps for well in excess of 12 months.
Could you give me a description of attribution as far as a journalist is concerned?
Well, it's naming the source of information.
I've been a journalist
whether
for
it's directly
26
from
years,
someone, and
and during that time I've built up quite a few skills and techniques and had quite a few experiences along the way. I thought that I could pass this on to students who were sufficiently interested and wanted to make journalism their career. My connection with the program goes back to its beginning, when at that time I was teaching with the cluster groups, and the mental program seemed to be a natural progression from that.
I came to Arthur in my HSC year. Well, I had my heart set on becoming a journalist, and they didn't offer that subject in my HSC year at school. While Arthur demands very high standards from his students, and now that I'm working for a newspaper, I'm glad he did. I've learned the self-discipline to cope with the job. Of course, he's taught me the technical skills, but more than that, he's passed on his experiences, and now I know what to expect.
Interesting?
Yep, this is a good one.
The mentor program relies on the generosity of a large group of people. The mentors themselves, people from our wider community, are a very, very important link in this process. Without their support, without their interest, and indeed without them giving of themselves at no cost, in fact, to us or to anybody else, they are able to interact in a very meaningful way with younger people.
How does it scan that way?
Okay, it's got two timers, which are just like this one here, only they're high frequency timers.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got, this one here is running at 50 hertz, so that does the lines that way.
Oh.
And this one runs at really high frequency and it pushes all the lines that way.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Being a mentor is a lot different from just normal, say, lecturing to a class, because it's a one-to-one basis, and the person that you're teaching things to is really hungry for the knowledge. There's a lot more empathy going on in there. It really gives you a great thrill.
I don't really understand too much about that. Can you explain to me this part here?
That's the two LEDs which turn on like
It's difficult to extend, Duncan, in electronics because I have little or no knowledge of the subject. So we've negotiated a contract where Duncan earns private research time 3 times a week to carry out individual study.
The horn with the bell, and that's what you hear.
All right then, well, we'll sign the contract for next week. Research time here and here and an hour here with Ben Purdy. All right? That's all the other.
I do enjoy my contract time because I get to do what I want to do instead of what I have to do, like in the classroom. I like best about school maths and playtime. I like maths because it's easy for me and I know it all and I'm good at it. And playtime because I get to relax, have a drink, muck around and think.
A sort of substitute mentor program such as the one that is running now is excellent because it substitutes for the extended family or for the particular older person within the tribal village, puts children in touch with a really experienced, skillful, enthusiastic motivator who can act as a model for the bright young person.
What was it for?
That's for a fridge. It's a very low frequency one. It switches the fridge on every 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, so it doesn't get too cold.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's the power supply.
There's your
Switching.
little timing capacitors there.
Oh, yeah, to charge,
And there's the little IC.
Oh,
And that's your fine adjustment for the timing.
yes, yeah.
And you've got a relay to switch on the compressor. And that little light just tells you when the relay's switched on.
Oh, yeah, good idea. Trust you with LEDs.
Duncan, what do you think you've got out of this? Is the mentor thing a good thing?
Well, yes. I think, well, I went to school, I went as far as I can reading books and things, but I think I needed someone else to do the things which I wasn't doing, like working with transistors instead of relays and switches. And I think it's helped me a lot.
Great.
Yeah.
Learning should be a natural process whereby the student, as the receiver of new knowledge and ideas, in a relationship with a teacher, in this case a mentor, is a very natural, a very automatic thing. When we're talking about a relationship between a mentor and a student, we're talking here about what we might assume as being a friendship. The sort of thing that happens with a friendship is the rapport that's developed between student and mentor.
Somewhere inside, and it's all going to keep coming out. Well, that can work with the first novel, but it's not going to work with the next one. I really enjoy being a mentor because, firstly, as a writer, I love the tension of a character gradually growing, really starting to grow right from out inside me, as it were, onto the page, where I don't have complete control over the character. They start to become, to me, as it were, a living person. If I can pass that on to Sonia, and that's what's been happening, or because she already has talent in that area, to expand that talent and to expand it in terms of settings where she doesn't have so much strength, that's really exciting. And I suppose I do it for the excitement of passing that on. And I thought Julie's is really, really interesting.
Well, Julie's is my favourite, so it should be.
That's where you see the problems, in a sense, where your craft is lacking, because you're playing around with, first of all, making him a combination of a nasty who at the same time people can really relate to in spite of his disability and so on like that. And then you want to have it both ways at the end. You don't know which way to take him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I wanted to, you know how he's nice at the end to Sam?
Yeah.
I wanted to make him redeem himself a bit, that if anyone who read it hated him, then I didn't want them to hate him still.
But you built that all the way through. That's exactly what you've done. You don't need to
But it'd be sad
preach to the
for
reader.
him if he went out being hated.
But you've got to leave that to the readers. You can't dictate to them how they're going to take the characters. Does that make sense?
But I also want to have him nice.
Yeah, but you can have that in your own imagination.
One of the hard things, I think, to realise as a mentor, and it doesn't matter how experienced you are, is what you have to lose to work with one of these students. Lose a bit of pride, maybe, something like that, because you're going to learn a lot from them, and I've certainly learnt a lot working with Sonia. I've got a young person there with her own ideas, who's taking me into not only her world, but also the world of adolescence. And, I'm a few years away from that. And that doesn't just affect my imagery or something, it affects my writing style, my attitude to description and so on like that. I've got to learn to cut back on description, which for me is natural. Cut back on nostalgia, for instance, to give you some idea. And that for me has been a very valuable learning experience. You always, when you stop learning, you're no longer teaching. Working with a couple of characters who are not closely related.
Yeah. The best thing about having a mentor is having someone who's interested in what I'm interested in and someone who understands what I'm talking about.
Now that we've read through the poem...
With Peter, we went through and looked at mostly the characters. He had a lot of ideas for both the teenagers and for the adults in the book. His ideas for the adults were good, and generally his ones for the teenagers were too. But I had to look at him as being, someone a generation above me and make out the characters, rewrite them as I think teenagers today would be. But he was a lot of help looking at the older characters. First of all, they'd come straight out of my imagination, but having someone to talk to like that was a great help. We looked at scenery. The setting is in a country town, and I'd actually been to the country town it's set in, but he told me a lot about his experiences in the country, and he suggested to me that I go through and think of just single words about country towns, like rusted nails and things like that. And so I went through and did that and did up about 40 of them, 40 words. And as I rewrote them into the book, I crossed them off, and just so it brought in a lot of detail and it made the book a lot better. I feel I can write with more confidence now.
I find it immensely rewarding being a mentor. By sharing skills and experiences with students, I get a real sense of investment in the future. They who really want to become journalists and come here give me fresh ideas for my own use. I have a real sense of investment in the future when these students develop these skills and techniques.
How was school today, Duncan?
Oh, pretty good.
What'd you do?
Contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Had to design a car alarm for Miss Smith.
Oh, what a car alarm. Why?
Because she's cars. Her tyres have been attacked and it cost her about $1,000.
What do you mean? Someone's damaging them, are they?
Yes.
What, slashing them all?
With a knife.
So she wants you to design an alarm for it?
Yeah.
You think you could do that?
Please.
Oh. Is she going to pay you?
Of course.
In chocolate frogs?
No.
Well, I think one of the things Duncan's achieved is the ability to use ordinary concepts. Well, some of the concepts in electronics he didn't know about. and to apply them. In fact, what he's been doing recently is reinventing a lot of electronic devices, just using the concepts that I've taught him.
Well, green wire goes under here, the coil, clip, and the root to the coil here is here. Should be one. Yep. So, the capacitor charge. If I take this for both. Great! So good. If I put a small capacitor, it'll go faster. Put a bigger one, it'll go slower. Oh dear.
I think since Duncan's been meeting with James that he's altered socially. He's not so aggressive as what he used to be. I'm sure the aggressiveness was due to frustration of not knowing what to do with his circuits. He was an introverted child, and I find he's more extroverted now. He's doing all these things that he wasn't doing before.
We would hope that the mentor program can be extended into schools. Schools should see this concept of a mentor program as a way of bridging the gap, as it were, between the school and its traditional curriculum and the wider community. They can tap into the expertise that indeed may come from parents, it may come from the community itself, and match up children with specific needs and interests that have been noticed by teachers, and get them interacting out of school hours in a really interesting and exciting way.
This is a brownish green, that background, and when you're mixing this up you use blue in it. Blue and yellow will give you that green. I've helped him develop his talent mainly by encouragement, helping him to see his own worth, to get a feeling about his own work and to build his confidence. I think that's the most important thing I've been able to do for him. It has been very interesting and very satisfying to see him develop. I believed from when I first met him that he had a lot of talent. His work was much more mature than any other student I'd seen, but he has gone on from there and is developing his work in a very fine manner, and I expect great things from him eventually.
The mentor scheme with Arlene has meant a lot to me. It's been more than a student to teacher relationship. She has influenced and inspired my work to a great extent. Arlene, for example, she's got a very loving and understanding nature, and I believe because of that I feel at ease and I can respond to her techniques and her thoughts in a positive way. And I believe that if it wasn't for her understanding nature, I would not be where I am now with what I've got.
I want you to have a look at this area here. I'm sure